Hello, family, and welcome to the Students of the Word podcast. My name is Desroy. Thank you so much for joining me today. A question: what if you had the option to choose for a brain surgery that you've been scheduled for? You have the option to choose a student fresh out of medical school or an experienced brain surgeon. Which would you choose? What if the place that you're supposed to do the surgery is a well developed, well funded, technologically advanced hospital or a underfunded hospice? Which would you choose? Well, if you are anything like me, I know that you would choose the better one. And as humans, we have the innate desire to choose better. We choose better when we look at communication, we choose better when we look at travel, and we choose better when we look at surgeries. That's exactly what the book of Hebrews is about. It tells us that Jesus is better than anything and anyone that was before him. To the early Jews, this was life changing news for them because they had a tendency to prefer the old way. But once we find the better, we do not want to go back to the old way, do we? Well, let's look at three powerful truths that we will be looking at today. The first is that Jesus is the better lawgiver. The second is that he is the better high priest that offers the better sacrifices. And the third is that Jesus gives the better assurance and the better rewards. First, look at the better lawgiver. The book of Hebrews opens by saying that God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past to the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken to us by his Son. Back in the Old Testament, God spoke through prophets like Moses, like Jeremiah, like Isaiah. Sometimes he spoke to them through dreams, at other times he spoke to them through visions. But now he has spoken through his Son, which is the final word that he will speak to the world. The prophets were mere messengers. But you see, Jesus is the message, brethren. He is the brightness of the glory of God. He is made in the exact image of his being. And because he is the Son of God, his revelation, they aren't partial, they aren't temporary, they are perfect and complete. So Hebrews is saying, if God spoke through Jesus, the one who made the world and upholds his power, then we should pay attention, keen attention. And that is why Hebrews 2:1 warns us, we must give the more earnest heed to the things which we have heard, lest at any times we allow them to slip. If God's people in the past were punished whenever it is that they disobeyed the word that was spoken to them by the angels and by the prophets, how much more serious will be the punishment if we do not listen to his very own Son? The message is simply, brethren and friends, we must listen to Jesus because he is the better lawgiver and the true voice of God. Our second point is that Jesus is the better high priest with better sacrifices. In ancient Israel, priests stood between God and the people. They offered sacrifices every single day because sin was always there, and the blood of animals could not take these sins away permanently. But Jesus changed all of that. Hebrews calls him a great high priest who has passed into heavens. Hebrews 4:14. He's not like the Levitical priest who had to keep offering sacrifices, not only for the people, but for themselves. He is the priest who offered sacrifice once for all. And he understands our struggles. He understands our temptations. He understands our weaknesses. Why? Because he became just like us. He was tempted in every single way as we are and will be tempted. But the key difference is that he never sinned and never will sin. Christ came and he lived a life that was similar to us, and so he understands us, and he was just like us. Unlike the priest, who came and went, Jesus is forever. He intercedes for us in every single moment, at every single point of the day. And that is why Hebrews 7:25 tells us that he is able to save them to the uttermost that come unto God by him, seeing he ever liveth to make intercession for them. Isn't that comforting, brethren and friends? Isn't that warm to know that we have a comforter? We have a high priest who never sleeps, he never clocks out, he's always on the job. If you look at the sacrifices, the old covenant required endless animal sacrifice. They covered sin, but they could not remove sin. Hebrews 10:4 tells us that it is not possible that the blood of bulls and goats could take away sins. It is estimated that over 1.86 million animals were killed during the Levitical period for sacrifice. But Jesus did what no animal could ever do. He offered sacrifice once for all. He covered sin, he cleansed sin completely. Hebrews 9:12 tells us that by his own blood he entered once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. His blood not only cleansed the body, it cleansed our conscience as well. Our final point: Jesus gives better assurance and better rewards. Because Jesus is both the high priest and perfect sacrifice, we can have the confidence before God. Hebrews 10:19 tells us that we can come boldly into the holy place, not because we are perfect, but because Jesus opened a new and living way for us through his own flesh. And the writer of Hebrews adds, let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith. Hebrews 10:22. We don't have to live in fear and guilt anymore. We have a living hope, knowing we have been cleansed, we have been forgiven, and we are welcomed into God's presence. Because our faith, if it endures, then we will be richly rewarded. Hebrews 11 gives us an entire chapter as it walks us through the halls of faith, as I call it. We see examples of these persons who were rewarded for their faith. Persons like Moses, Rahab. We see other persons like Sarah, Abraham, and many others who, because they trust in God, they receive the promise that he, Jesus Christ, would have given unto them. Trusting in God is critical if it is that we are going to get the reward promise. Jesus not only offers better assurance, he offers better rewards. Trust me, following Jesus is not easy. It requires discipline and there will be struggles. But one thing you can know for sure, as we see in Hebrews 12, which reminds us that God will discipline us if it is that we go awry, but this is not out of rejection. This is because of his love for us, and he wants to share with us his holiness. No discipline feels good for the moment, but it later produces it produces the peaceful fruit of righteousness. So when life gets tough, as it will, remember that even God's correction is part of his plan to make you better and not bitter. And then the Hebrew writer paints this beautiful contrast between Mount Zion and Mount Sinai. It's telling us that we have come to the better. What is the better? Jesus the Christ. Friends, that's the ultimate message of Hebrews, that Jesus is the better way. Better than the prophets, better than the angels, better than the sacrifice. He gives us better hope, better promises with a better destiny. And final thought, something I will leave you with, is that if God has spoken to us through his Son, how will you respond now that you have heard the word? You don't have to live under guilt and confusion anymore. Jesus offers you a new covenant, one written on your heart, not on tablets of stone. And when you put your faith in him, you can rest on his promises that your sins will be remembered no more. He is better, and life with him is better. He will always be better. Thank you so much for joining us for the book of Hebrews, which is the better book. If this encouraged you, share it with a friend. And until next time, walk in faith and remember, Jesus is always better.